Welcome to the Energize, Explore, Enjoy podcast, where we bring you inspiring conversations about food, fitness, and adventure, fueled by the power of the energy pods. Let's do this! Welcome back to our podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest who is an actor, content creator, and a passionate advocate for disability rights. She's gone from neuroscience to viral fame on YouTube and TikTok as the cross-eyed Dominatrix, and now she's creating engaging content in Los Angeles. Please welcome the incredibly talented Crystal Loverro.
Hey there, listeners. This episode is sponsored by the ever-amazing KG Food Company's Energy Pods. Are you ready for a flavor adventure? Get ready to taste white chocolate strawberry, breakfast mocha noir, and the fan favorite chocolate nova. These pods are not only delicious, but also are packed with protein, healthy fats, and minimal sugar to keep you going all day. Plus, they come with a built-in spoon for your on-the-go snacking needs. So, don't wait another minute. Head over to kgfoodco.com, kgfoodco.com, and order some energy pods to fuel your life.
After I graduated high school, I went to Binghamton University, and I was kind of dabbling in psychology and neuroscience. I was going to be a neuroscientist, and I wanted to go to med school eventually. That was the initial plan. I was shadowing doctors, and I was an EMT for a while. Loved that. It was a lot of fun. I was doing research in a research lab. I was doing all the things I'm going to go be a doctor and all that. And taking all the classes, and I graduated with neuroscience, bachelor's of neuroscience, and an emphasis in pre-health. And I ended up actually hurting. So I dislocated my ankle. And I was just kind of going through a rough time mentally, and I'm I don't know if I really want to go to med school, and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was kind of maybe if I did physical therapy, because the physical therapy on my ankle helped me realize, wow, that's really cool. It's kind of similar. It's another avenue, not going to med school, but another avenue I could potentially explore. So I started shadowing some physical therapists, and I was yeah, maybe I could do this and try this out. But I still found myself, not really being happy. There's something missing from my life. There's something integral to me that I'm not exploring. And I had an aunt, named Darlan Flugel. She was a famous model and actress. She sadly passed away from early onset Alzheimer's, and it ended her career pretty early on. And it's weird, I had this dream about her, and she was embrace your creative side or whatever. And I secretly my whole life wanted to be an actor, but I never knew that was a thing people could do. I just didn't know anything about it. So I was oh, that's not possible. But this dream helped me realize her telling me, no, you can do this, do it, go for it. And so I was okay, well, maybe I'll explore that side of myself. So I was still in Binghamton at this point, Binghamton, New York. For those of you who don't know, it's upstate. It's kind of close to Syracuse and Ithaca and all that. So I basically was okay, I'll join a film group and see what that's like. And so I did that. I thought it was really cool. I started making no budget films with some new friends I had made. And then I ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, and I was there for a while. I joined an acting class, and that's when I fell in absolute love. I was okay, this is amazing. This is what I love. And I just never turned back. I kept taking acting classes, kept getting some experience up in Portland, Oregon, doing some independent stuff. Then eventually, 3 years later, I moved down to LA. It's my first year. I'm pretty much coming up on my first year in July of being here in Los Angeles, and I love it. It's been great. I have done a lot of fun things, and it's just made a really great community here. And yeah, I love acting. I don't see myself ever changing from this career.
That's so fantastic. It's hilarious at the same time. One of my friends, he was a researcher in biochemistry, and for him, he switched careers to a crazy job where he works on airplanes, works about 3 to 4 days over the weekend, and then spends 3 to 5 days with his family. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
So it's really interesting how this whole process works, which brings me to a question. How was this journey for you? Was it like a U-turn, or was it like a progressive move towards acting? How did your life story pan out when it comes to this transition?
Yeah, honestly, it kind of felt like a U-turn, actually, in a way. At the time of when I made the decision, I was substitute teaching at my old high school. So, I mean, I was still doing that to make money or whatever. I just kind of like decided, not to take my MCAT, which is the medical school admissions test. I decided I'm not going to take it. And I just kept subbing for a little while to make some money, and then I had moved out to Portland, and from there I did use my degree a little bit, and I was a behavioral therapist. Well, I was out there at first for 6 months. I went back to New York for a little bit and then went back out. It's kind of a little bit of a ping pong thing. But I was a behavioral therapist, so technically I did use my degree, but that was more of like a day job to make money. And then I kind of just like kept taking the classes and doing the acting thing. And then when I went back to New York, I just did some kind of like odd jobs. Like I worked at a doggy daycare and did some, because I love animals. I did some like dog handling type of things there. And then when I moved back out to Portland, because I was just in New York for a short period of time again, when I moved back out to Portland, I was a bud tender, which is like, for those who don't know, it's kind of like a bartender, but with weed. You're in a shop selling weed to people, like a legal job, So I did that for a little bit, and that was kind of like pretty big difference to what I'm used to. And it was just more like a day job to like get the acting career going. But then, yeah, after that, I pretty much just focused on the acting career full time. I did do another thing where I was a front desk assistant to a dental office for a little bit too. But I was just like, yeah, no, I'm miserable doing all this. I'm just going to focus on being a creative full time. So it's kind of what I'm doing now,
Normally, people take classes. I assume you took classes as well. What was your first exposure into acting? As in, how did you even start this process? Like, let's say it's somebody who's just working at front desk. Let's say that as an example, and they're like, okay, I want to start doing acting. Like, how do you even begin? How do you even navigate the waters?
The first thing I would say to anybody ever is get into acting class right away, because that's where you're going to learn how to act, because like you can't really be an actor if you don't know how to act. So I'm like, okay, get into acting classes right away. You're also going to meet a community of people, like-minded individuals that are going to be able to be like, hey, let's make a project and, let's do scenes together. And having that community is very important, because this career can be really tough, and it's good to have other like-minded people who are there to support you and you're there to support them. And if you get auditions, you guys can read for each other and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say get into classes, get some acting books. I really like The Actor's Life by Jenna Fisher. That's more of a detailing oh, this is what it's like to be an actor, like a working actor. This is what you're going to go through. And then, depending on what kind of class you're in, you might be doing a certain acting technique. But I mean, there's so many different acting schools that you can kind of learn from. I really like Uta Hagen. So I would say, get Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting. I would say check out that book. Some people though, they don't, learn as well with books, but I mean, you can go into acting classes, you can read some books. That's how you're really gonna learn. Because also with me being an analytical person, I came from a college background, so I'm used to reading books and learning from books. So I did a lot of reading on acting, but I also did a lot of immersing myself into classes, learning from really good coaches and taking a variety of different classes and finding out who works best for me. And sometimes you might be with a coach for a while and you feel like you get a little comfortable, so it's time to check out something else, And I would say just years of that, I've taken so many acting classes, and right now I'm focusing on improv. So I'm taking a lot of improv with the groundlings, and I'm kind of focusing on that part of my skill set. So it's I feel like acting classes is truly the way to go, honestly.
Is acting something that people can take up as a hobby, or do you really have to commit a lot of time and energy into it?
I think there there are a lot of people who do acting as a hobby. It just depends on what you want from your career, because like if you're looking to be competitive and be on TV and studio films, then yes, you really have to. It's like you're training for the Olympics, but you're an actor, so you really need to put all your time into it and like treat it as such. Like I'm always working towards my career, you know, I'm never not working towards my career, I feel like. And then that's in the case where you want to be on a competitive level, you want to be on TV, all that. But there are some people who are just like, no, I just want to do like short films here and there, or like independent stuff that's like no budget, and that's cool. You can do that as a hobby. You know, like I've seen a lot of no budget stuff where people are just in there and they're kind of just like doing it as like a hobby, and like that works for some people. But if you want it as a career, you really gotta like put your all into it, you know what I'm saying?
What were some things that really stood out for you when you started your life in acting, coming from, like you said, an analytical mindset? Like, what were things that you were like, okay, it might not be bad, but it turned out to be bad, or it was something good, but it turned out to be really good? Or like, what were some myths and misconceptions or anything at all that really stood out?
So if I'm interpreting this question correctly, I will say I'm still dealing with the fact that I have a very analytical mindset. So, for example, improv, it's like the opposite, like just don't think at all. And I'm like, I get in my head sometimes, you know? So like that's something I definitely deal with, is like just letting go and not getting in my head and not overanalyzing. So like as someone with that analytical background and everything, that analytical Virgo brain, I definitely feel like sometimes I think too much, and sometimes you just need to feel and be in the moment. Oh, well, you should always feel and be in the moment, but it's like interesting because like acting, if you get a script, you have to do all your script analysis and your homework on the script, right? We call it couch work or whatever, at least I do. And so yeah, I'll do my couch work, my homework, whatever. I'll do it with the script. I'll analyze the script. I'll analyze the character and do all the things, and backstory if it's not given to me, and my motivation, all that good script analysis stuff. And you do all those things, and you think the thoughts of the character. You figure out your character's point of view, and then when you're on camera doing the audition or you're in the scene, you want to let all that go and be in the moment thinking the thoughts of the character. So it's like this balance between the analytical side of the script analysis and the spontaneous life of the character of, oh, I'm in this moment. This is this person to me, this relationship I have. And like, it's like a conversation, So it's like, you got to find a balance between the two. But I know with improv, there's just my biggest thing is I think I just need to get out of my head completely and let go. It's hard to not want to plan and be analytical,
So what happens during improv? Do you get anything at all to go off of with? How does an improv session work?
So I've been really focusing on short form improv right now. And it's basically you ask your audience, give us a suggestion, and it may be, what are these two characters doing? And the audience, they'll raise their hand, they'll give a bunch of suggestions, and they'll be like, oh, they're basket weaving, which is a terrible example. But, they're washing dishes or whatever. So, and then the person who's leading the improv, the teacher or whatever, or the stage director will be like, okay, we're taking washing dishes. So you'll get that. Typically, you'll get an activity from the audience, and that's pretty much it. And then you have to basically work off of, okay, where are we? Who are we to each other? And also label each other as, names and relationship in an organic way. And where are we? So what are we doing is typically given by the audience. A lot of the time is the activity, and then it's who are we? And then where are we? And why are we doing this? Because it's nobody wants to just watch two people washing dishes boringly. Typically you want to have a big emotion at the start of the scene. And it's if you're crying and washing dishes, label that. Why are you crying and washing dishes? Today is the day when blank. And then you kind of just say, you build that relationship, and yeah. Kind of its own thing.
From one analytic person to another analytic person, here's an interesting question. What are some applications of improv?
I mean, as an actor, you can, it's really important to have that skill for commercials. Also, like,
really, I would not have thought.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially in the audition room, like, they'll be like, you have to, like, throw your own buttons on things, and you have to be able to work off organically. You know, like, some commercial auditions, like, they won't even give you a script. They're just like they're really weird. Sometimes it's like, these are the actions we want you to do, and it's like, they'll be like, have fun with it, improv, you know? So, like, they'll want you to throw your own funny stuff into it or whatever, like your own buttons or whatever. So yeah, commercials are really a good application of improv as an actor, you know. Also, like, I've been in some films where they wanted us to improv a little bit too, so like that can be really useful. Also, I mean, I feel like for the non-actor, improv can just help you with confidence and getting out of your head. Like, just being and having fun, like, it's a lot of fun. Like, you just go into this room with a bunch of people that you just all have fun. You don't judge each other. You just let loose, you know what I'm saying? So it can really help you, like, free yourself, you know. And it's just like, it's kind of like funny. You go to this place as an adult, and I feel like you just play for an hour or 3 hours, I guess. You play for like 3 hours with a bunch of other adults. It like really helps you get in touch with like that play inside of you, your inner child or whatever. Just be and don't care and just be like, have fun, you know?
What forms of acting do you like? Or is this like asking a mother what's her favorite child? Is that like the kind of question that I just asked?
No, honestly, if I could tell you exactly where I want my career to go, end game, I would say, okay, I want to emanate the career of my idol, Lena Headey. She's my favorite actor. She helped indirectly inspire me too to chase this career because I just love her as an actor. She's really talented. She was Cersei in Game of Thrones. That was her big, you know, everybody knows her for that, but she's done a lot of other remarkable things. So I would say, like, okay, I want to be on an HBO fantasy drama like Game of Thrones and be a series regular and ideally win an Emmy or something. That's like end game career goals for me. Like, holy crap, you know, like that's what I want to do. But also, you know, in the meantime, I also want to have fun with comedy. Like, I really, really want to be on the show I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson on Netflix. That would be really cool because I've had a lot of success with my comedy, and that's kind of where I've had, like, you know, the growth in my career has mostly been in comedy. But I mean, like, I love fantasy and period drama. I'm obsessed, but it's like I'm working my way into that, you know. Like, I actually have a scene I'm currently editing right now with my friend Grace, who was there actually when you met me. We're editing it together. We wrote it, we acted in it and everything, and we shot it. And our friend Kelsey directed it, and we had a little crew, and we're going through that. And then once I release that, it'll be like, hey, look, I can do this. I can do the fantasy period drama. But I mean, a lot of my stuff is comedy right now, which I love. Comedy is a lot of fun. So I mean, like, I love good comedy. I also love that, like, really deep fantasy, you know, like just Game of Thrones, you know, that kind of thing. Love.
Is Game of Thrones your favorite among fantasy?
Among fantasy, well, I would say my most favorite ever, like my favorite movie of all time is definitely like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah, Lord of the Rings trilogy, that's my most favorite movie of all time. I'm obsessed with that as a fantasy film. That's kind of like what got me obsessed with fantasy. And then, I mean, I love Game of Thrones. You know, I think the last 2 seasons were definitely like crushed or whatever, and they kind of like dropped the ball or whatever. But I mean, I still think as a whole, like, that series changed my life, and like overall, like, you know, I do still love Game of Thrones, you know, like, I just, yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, trying to think. I mean, I also play a lot of video games too, like World of Warcraft. That's what my tattoo is. I know people can't see it, but you can see it. So I play a lot of fantasy video games. I grew up playing Zelda, so like I've just always been a big fantasy nerd, honestly.
We are huge nerds over here. Currently, we're playing Diablo 4.
Oh, nice, Diablo 4. Yeah, I'm currently playing World of Warcraft, so I see all the Diablo stuff. Like
the traitors.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you this question now, because we're huge nerds. So I'm going to ask you from an actor's perspective, since you're all about it. How could the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones be improved? Or would you just expand it out to more seasons?
Well, the thing is about that is like the first, I think it was the first 4 that were based off of George R.R. Martin's books, which were brilliantly written because he's a brilliant author. And like obviously they stuck pretty true to it. And it was really good. Like the first 4 seasons were top notch, And then I thought season 5 was fine and season 6 was okay. I mean, even season 7 and 8, they were all right, but I think it was just hard because they were working off their own thing, trying to make something that was already brilliant, like their own thing. So they were already kind of like in a tough spot to begin with. But also like, if you're going to do that, then I guess you just have to commit fully. And I would say they kind of, like I said, they rushed those last 2 seasons. Like maybe if they made more seasons, they could have made it work. But I also get not wanting a show to go on too long because then it's just, but I mean, like, for example, like maybe they could have not rushed it. I don't know. They could have thought it through more, but I feel like they just wanted to be done. And then I haven't seen House of Dragon, but I heard it flopped pretty bad. So I can't even tell you about that because I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing it was just not very good.
What are some of the best, according to your opinion, some of the best adaptations from either script or either books or either from a comic book or any of those kind of fictional material? What do you think was one of the best, and why do you think it was one of the best?
I would say Lord of the Rings trilogy, not The Hobbit, just to be clear. Lord of the Rings trilogy was pretty good. Like not perfect, but I would say it was probably one of the best in my opinion. But also like I feel like with film and TV, it's just a different medium. So like I'm okay with putting like your own spin on it a little bit and like appealing to viewers to some degree. And like obviously it's its own form of art. So like it doesn't have to be exactly to the book. That's what the book's for. So I feel like Lord of the Rings did that where like they respected Tolkien and they also did their own thing a little, but like it was like pretty good. Like I really enjoyed it and it didn't feel like it was trying to be like, it didn't feel like it, I'm trying to think of the word that just tries to like really deviate from it and just like gets a little weird or whatever. Like I feel like The Hobbit was kind of like that where I was like, okay. But no, I really like Lord of the Rings. I'm just a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. So I would say that probably. And the first season of Handmaid's Tale, for sure. That followed the book pretty strictly, I think.
I've not seen it per se. I've heard good things about it. So I'll do my homework on it after we're done with the podcast. So next up, this is inevitable, and I want to know, cross-eyed dominatrix. What's up with that?
Yeah, the cross-eyed dominatrix. So it's a pretty crazy story. Like I was in Portland and I made a friend, Jason Rosenblatt. He's a really talented filmmaker, writer, director, the whole thing. We had been working together a lot on various different films and stuff, and he kind of like helped me create a good reel, like a demo reel. We did so many projects together. And then it was like, oh man, I got my braces off because I had braces for a while. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to LA and everything on my reel is going to have braces in it and nobody's going to hire me. And he's like, oh, well, maybe we can shoot some things before you go or whatever, because he's a homie, really cool guy, good friend. We had been kind of like joking around, like talking a little bit, because we look at my wardrobe, we're like, what could we shoot with this? What could we shoot with this? And I had this like really cool strappy, like I always called it like my dominatrix outfit. I was like, oh, I've got this like dominatrix outfit, right? And so he's like, oh, I guess we could write something for that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Why not? So he writes this thing with his friend at the time, who's now my friend, Barry. Shout out to that guy. And like, we didn't think it was going to be anything. It was just going to be a real scene to show that I could act, I guess, in comedy or whatever. So it was like, okay, we're doing this thing. 40-second scene, super short. Like, my YouTube at the time was just a portfolio for me to put my acting work. So I'm like, okay, I'll just put that on there as a clip, no big deal. And it goes viral, and we're like, what the hell? What is this? What is happening? And everybody's asking us for more. Yeah, and I'm moving to LA in 2 weeks at this point. I'm like packing and shit, and I'm just like, what the hell is this? And then so, because this was just literally supposed to be a real scene, you know, like based off of an outfit I owned. But it was so funny. People loved it, right? So I was like, okay, Jason, can we make another one? And he was like, yeah, all right, we can make another one. So we made another one the next week. We made another one. And it went pretty popular again, like 800K views or whatever. And we were like, all right, people still like this. They want more. But at that point, it's like, okay, I gotta go. I'm leaving, all right? I'm leaving for LA. So there was a point where Jason came down and visited me, and we made some stuff, not cross-eyed dominatrix related. We just made some other things, you know? And then I was like, okay, well, what if I flied up to you for a week or something, and we made some more episodes or something and some other things. So I flew up to him. We also got a DP, director of photography from LA, named Tomas. He's pretty cool. He flew up as well. And we shot episodes 3 and 4 of The Cross-Eyed Dominatrix, and we made a sequel to our previous short film, Braces, which was when I had braces. So we made a sequel to that. We also made another little clip about me being a really crappy therapist. But the highlight, of course, is The Cross-Eyed Dominatrix. So we made episodes 3 and 4, and then we released them on YouTube, and they did okay too. Not quite as viral as the first 2 or whatever, but I mean, like, the fan base was pretty happy to see them, and, you know, it was just nice to make more of that. So, I mean, it all started with just like, let's make this clip for my reel, and then it became this thing, basically.
What's interesting is that there's this whole rise of YouTube, TikTok, and all of these different avenues. So how have these avenues influenced the acting world as a whole? Do you see there's bridges forming here, or is there a big disconnect still between the new media and the way the classic acting world is done, like go through auditions and then all that kind of stuff? Like, how is this world changing?
I would say, especially since the pandemic, there's like a big rise in like social media, and like honestly, a lot of these apps, especially TikTok. Speaking of TikTok, my manager wanted me to get into TikTok. I'd been avoiding it for a really long time, so I got into it. I ended up going viral on there with, again, The Cross-Eyed Dominatrix. I cross-promoted it on there. I made little clips of it, and I put it on there. That went viral. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to do TikTok now, right? But they're talent discovery platforms. So like TikTok is a big talent discovery platform. So you're going to find like, you can find agents and managers on there, and like casting directors and things like that are looking at your work and trying to find the next big thing, you know? So, I mean, I would say like as an actor, it can be important to use social media as a tool to grow your career, you know, especially in today's day and age. It's a very digital age that you don't even necessarily have to live in LA or New York or Atlanta to have a career these days, especially if you're utilizing social media to your advantage. I would say that it's very important to create your own content these days. That's very important to be competitive as an actor. You know, especially right now, there's a writer's strike going on, and SAG-AFTRA is probably going to strike too. DGA is probably going to strike. So, I mean, you've got everybody striking. So, like, now is the time to be, 1, in classes, of course, and then 2, making your own stuff, you know, with friends. Just being like, I'm going to write a little script, and I'm going to make it with some friends, you know, post it on YouTube, post it on TikTok, post it on Instagram, cross-promote it, you know? I think that's really important to have a competitive edge, and also to stay sane in a world, in a career that is completely oversaturated with people who want to be actors and creators. And there's no shortage of digital content. So, I mean, like, I think it's good to, but I would say make stuff you want to see, make stuff you enjoy, ultimately.
What's up with the whole strikes? I've been hearing about them, but being someone who lives under a rock, I would like to be schooled on that.
So, the strikes are basically like, you know, demanding more pay from these big studios and such. So, like, you've got WGA who's like, hey, we need to be paid more, and also banning the usage of AI to write scripts and stuff, you know, like to put people out of jobs, you know, like even as an actor, we have to worry about AI now. There's voice AI, so like put voiceover people out of business. There's like, you know, digital AI. So, I mean, basically put a control on AI so it's not putting people out of business, but also paying us a fair wage as well, because people aren't getting paid enough, writers, actors alike. we're all not getting paid enough.
So how's the industry over this? Like, how are they overcoming all of these challenges? Are they adapting, or are there some changes right around the corner? Because art is beautiful. Art is one of the best things that can happen to humanity.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, like, things are pretty weird because, you know, everybody's striking. Like, they're out in the streets with pickets. They're like, you know, they're striking. There's kind of a halt on a lot of, like, big productions and stuff. I think there are some changes around the corner. I think that it would be good, like, to control the AI thing. Like, I think AI can be a very useful tool if it's used correctly as a tool, but you also have people, you know, like, using it in a way that's not really, I don't think, honest, where, like, they may write a whole script with AI and say it's their own, and, you know, like, that's not fair to the people who sit at their computers for however long they do. And just, I mean, even myself as, like, a new writer, like, I've written my own stuff and I've written with friends. Like, it takes a while, you know, you write something and then you fine tune it several times. And I mean, you're using your own creative energy to do that. And, like, if somebody's using AI to just write themselves a whole script, it's just like it's kind of like, it's like frowned upon. It's like, what are you doing, you know? It kind of defeats the point of being creative and, you know, writing something and, you know, saying, oh, this is mine and I'm proud of it and I worked hard on it and everything. So I think that, like, hopefully I would like to see some controls in place for that, because I also just worry about the whole actor thing too, is like, just, you know, the voiceover, the AI thing and everything else. And I just don't want to be put out of business, you know, act like humans, man. Humans are great. Let's just keep doing that.
Here's another interesting question.
Hey listeners, before we jump back into our fascinating conversation, let's take a moment to appreciate the delicious goodness of KG Food Company's Energy Pods. These delightful pods come in a variety of amazing flavors, like white chocolate strawberry, breakfast mocha noir, and the ever-popular Chocolates Nova. And they're not just tasty, they're also packed with protein, healthy fats, and minimal sugar to keep you fueled throughout the day. Perfect for when you're on the go, these energy pods even come with a built-in spoon for your convenience. So, go ahead and treat yourself to these mouth-watering pods that'll make your taste buds dance. Visit kgfoodco.com, kgfoodco.com to grab your favorite flavors. And now, let's get back to our inspiring guest.
Whenever you're provided with a script of any sort, like there could be different kinds, I don't know. How do you evaluate it? What do you look for in those scripts? How do you build from there?
If I'm given a script, I use a lot of different techniques. Like, I really like, so I studied with Howard Fine Studios for a while. And I have his book right here, right down here. I have his book and I really like his method. He has like 8 different steps that he uses to do script analysis. And he bases a lot of his, like technique and stuff off of Uta Hagen, which I also really like. And then I also studied with Leslie Kahn. I really liked her as well. She kind of like teaches like how to think the character's thoughts. So like I mix a bunch of, like, I just have a toolbox of a bunch of different methods that I like to mix together. But ultimately when I look at a script, if I'm given a whole script, like a whole like entire thing versus just sides, oftentimes you're just given sides and it's like, perform this scene for us on tape or whatever. But if I'm given a whole script, I will read that whole script. I will figure out, okay, I'm this character, and I will read the entire script and I'll say, okay, this is the scene they want me to perform and this is where I'm at. This is what I know from before in the script of my character. And then like through those sides, I will either, if the backstory is given to me, that's awesome. That's very helpful. Anything that is given to me is great. But sometimes, a lot of times, things aren't given to you. So you have to kind of come up with your own backstory that'll help you make strong choices in that moment, you know? So by backstory, I mean, like, you know, who are you? What side of the tracks did you grow up on? Are you poor? Are you rich? Do you have siblings? What's your relationship to your parents? All different stuff that's going to be nuanced that kind of like helps you like understand how that character's point of view is going to be. And then like things like, what do you do for a living? Or like just random backstory stuff. That's like the homework of the thing, you know? And then like I'll go through and I'll say, okay, what time is it? You know, is it day? Did I just have breakfast? Am I hungry? What's going on here? And then I'll also say, where am I and what's my relationship to the environment that I'm in, because that's going to impact a scene big time. And then who am I talking to? What's my relationship to them? Who's being mentioned in the scene? And what's my relationship to them? And then I'll also look at, what's my super objective? What's my overall goal in life? But also, what's my goal in this scene? What is my action? What am I trying to get out of this character? So there's this cool list of action, I'm trying to either convey or I'm trying to persuade. What is an action verb that you can say you are trying with this character to this person you're speaking to in this scene? And then I also say, what are my obstacles, both psychological, physical? What are the obstacles in this scene? And I just go through all these things just to build out what is this scene to me and what's going on. And then also, what's my moment before? What was happening before you say the first word or your scene partner says the first word? What was the before? Because you have to build that up. You don't start acting when the camera goes on. You should be in it beforehand. You should be in your moment before. And so you have that moment before. And then also, where are you going? When the scene ends, where are you going? So you want to have a moment after as well. So you don't just go, okay, action, I'm acting. Cut, okay, I'm not acting. You want it to be fluid and be okay, I'm being this character in this moment. I am fully invested in this character. And so basically, I do all the script analysis things, the couch work, the homework, whatever you want to call it. And then I also this is where Leslie Kahn comes in, is I like to, after I've done all that, I like to go through my script, and every punctuation, I like to just kind of write the thought before the saying of what I'm saying. So if I'm saying I want to say, what's the thought that led me to say this thing? And then, so I write that down.
Wow.
And when I know there's a lot. And then I'll rehearse a few times with the thoughts out loud. So I'll say I'll say my thoughts plus the actual script. And then I'll rehearse without the thoughts and just think them in my brain. Because you want to see the thoughts come clear through the actor's eyes. And what motivated me to say, if I'm actually saying, hey, how are you? Am I just saying, hey, how are you? Or hey, how are you? What am I saying? What's the thought there? So I will, it just depends on what's your motivation really, and what's the characters. It's just all that homework comes into play that you did beforehand. So I will do all that, and then I will rehearse it, and then I will record it and see how it goes. And sometimes I'll play with different thoughts until I find the right one that's okay, that's a strong choice, that makes sense. So I'll play around with it,
That's fantastic. So let's move on from the script to the actual production, and we'll stick to the screen production for now. So how does this script that you just read turn into something that people see on the screen? What kind of legwork or systems are in place, or how does it parse down and turn into something that is just so easy to consume and digest and flow seamlessly to deliver a wonderful experience? How does that happen? How does the magic happen? Tell me.
Yes, the magic. Well, I've made a few things from the ground up, I've written the thing, you do table reads and see how does this sound, what needs to be rewritten. And then so you get the thing you wrote right? And then, you can do a live rehearsal with blocking and stuff. So, but you of course got to get the whole crew and stuff. So I have a group of friends that's okay, we'll be the actors. We'll ask someone to be the director. We'll ask someone to do the sound and the director of photography, which is the camera person. And then a script supervisor, which is for continuity and stuff like that. So you have all those people that are down to do that whole thing, right? So that helps. So you got all those people, you've gone through the few table reads, you like the writing, you're this is cool, we like the writing. And then maybe you'll do a day if you're able to, or just even before you shoot it, you can do an hour where you just take time apart to do a live rehearsal where you're blocking out the actions and stuff, and the camera person's there, and they're you've got a shot list at this point too, so all your shots, and if you want, you can also make a storyboard that helps if you're more visual. And, like it's important for the actors to block out what they're doing, but also you need the director to see it and figure out what they want to do with the whole thing. And then you need the cameraman to make sure they can practice some of the camera work, and like you want to test lighting, all that good stuff, right? So, at least I'm talking like smaller budget stuff where it's just a bunch of friends making things, you just kind of all work together and work through all the hurdles, and basically you end up doing a little bit of rehearsal and testing lighting and like lots of that. So like sometimes you shoot out of order. Like it depends on like what makes sense for like the setup and the lighting. Like, I've had experience with like everything. Like we decorated my room to look like a fantasy set. We had like all the lighting in there. We did all the things for this. I wish I had it finished, but it's in the editing process now. But so basically you are just there for a really long time all day, like trying to go through the shots, and like of course you want like good performance. We were also doing accents, which just adds another layer of difficulty to it. But yeah, you gotta get your good performance and like test the lighting and each different shot arrangement, like if you flip the camera to go to the other person's coverage, you gotta change the lighting. So it takes a while, you've got like, it seems so seamless when you actually watch like you said, you watch the video and you're like, oh, this is cool, but so much work goes into it. It's like, okay, we're on this angle, now we've got to do all the lighting, do. And sometimes you may have a second team who comes in and stands in while the other actors go to their trailer and chill or whatever. And they'll kind of stand in for lighting so that the way they can set up the shot, because that can take a while. And then the actors, the first team comes in, stars, whatever. And then they shoot that, and then they have to go to a different coverage, and they have to relight it and all that stuff. Actually something we did recently, we shot once and then we actually reshot it because we were like, we're not happy with the lighting and stuff, because we had someone on it where they didn't really light it well. So we were like, okay, we're gonna reshoot it because we're perfectionists, we want it to be good, and it's something we wrote. It was our baby, we loved it, so, but it was a blessing in disguise because we shot it again. It's way better. And then after you shoot it, you get the actual shooting done. That's when the real work begins. No, all of it's like real work, but then you also like in pre-production still. So it's really like I've done a little bit of producing where I found like locations and stuff. The thing I shot recently, that was my place was the location. So it kind of took a lot of that pre-production out of it, because I was like, okay, we're just gonna shoot it at my place, and I did all the set deck and stuff. But after you finish shooting, now you gotta go in, you edit it. So for picture, you edit it for the story. You do the picture lock, and then after that, you can do some coloring, and then you do sound and ADR. I actually just finished, almost finished. We're almost done with editing sound on that fantasy thing I was telling you about. We did some ADR. We had a dialect coach look over it and everything, and because that was just another extra layer of complexity. So yeah, we once you edit sound, and then we're gonna get a composer to put some music in there, but we want to have everything locked in before we do that. And then yeah, I think it'll be good to release as a scene, and this is only like a 3-minute scene tops. There's so much work to be done.
So if you were to sort of like give me like an analytical sort of breakdown, like how does like one page of script translate into the time that it takes or the effort that it takes? Could it take all the way to a month, or is it going to take 2 weeks? Is it going to take 1 week? Is it going to take, or I guess you could say that it depends on what kind of stuff it is. I don't know. Help me.
It depends on a lot of things, honestly. You could be like Jason Rosenblatt, my friend who's a very talented filmmaker. He'll throw out a script, he'll shoot it, he'll have it edited like the next day. He's a super person. I don't know. But then there's people, like it just depends on like your time, your skill level, the tools you have, like depends on a lot of things, honestly. And like the experience, like Jason has had tons of experience. He went to film school, he has all the equipment, like it takes time if you're newer and you're like, also if you're bouncing between people, if you're passing it off to somebody else, then like if there's multiple people working on it, it could take longer. But if you're just like a one-man show like Jason, like he knows like all the things he wants and he can kind of like put stuff out pretty quick. But for me, I mean, it's taken a while. Like we had to do some ADR on this, which was challenging. And then, you know, you have to get everybody's schedule together because you need people there in person. And, you know, so it can take longer depending on how many people are involved and who's doing what. So, I mean, like, for example, this scene has taken us kind of a while because we've had pretty busy schedules, and we also had to do the ADR thing, and we've had to also ask other people, like, oh, look over this thing, and, like, then you have to wait for them to get back. So, I mean, it's taken a few months for us to get to where we are on the scene, and we're not done yet. But we're getting there.
You mentioned in your bio, and you've talked, not talked to me per se, but I've seen it, that you're sort of connected with the disability community. Is there a story to that? Like, what's the connection?
Yeah, so there's a few things. The thing I like talk about most publicly is that I'm partially blind. So I was born blind in my right eye completely due to a rare genetic condition called septo-optic dysplasia. And then I'm severely myopic, which for those that don't know, it means I'm nearsighted, so like I can see close up but not far away. So I'm severely myopic in my left eye, which gets worse over time, and it led to a spontaneous retinal detachment, which led to me needing surgery, and it like severely impacted my vision to a point where it's you know, like I don't really have any night vision and things like that. So I deal with partial blindness. And then I also deal with CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which like I talk about like less publicly, but I mean, of course, like I can like talk about it a little in like a podcast, like, oh, I also deal with this. It's just like I mostly just focus on, hey, I'm partially blind, you know? But yeah, CPTSD is a big thing that I have to deal with that can be really challenging in my day-to-day life. So yeah, I definitely, I also deal with ADHD too, and it's just like I deal with a lot of different things. So yeah, like that can be quite the hurdle, but I try to use it to my advantage, you know.
So if you don't mind me prying on that, what does that entail though?
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when,
we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will just define what it means because a lot of people don't really know about it. So post-traumatic stress disorder, say, can be when you go through a traumatic event, such as a car accident or, you know, whatever else you want to get into that's traumatic, a house fire. And it's an isolated event that causes you to have post-traumatic stress disorder. And, you know, you can have night terrors, flashbacks to that event, and like it can lead to anxiety, depression, a bunch of different symptoms of this thing. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when you have gone through prolonged trauma, not just one isolated event, over the span of many years. In my case, most of my life, prolonged trauma, like abuse, you know, a lot of people who go through like childhood abuse and stuff, they can develop that, which is just complex post-traumatic stress disorder is just like, it's a beast on its own. It's just, there's a lot that comes with it, you know, like a lot of flashbacks and being stuck in flashbacks, night terrors, you know, just difficulty with anxiety and depression. It can also manifest itself to look like, you know, a lot of different things. It's just, it's still, I feel like just being talked about over the last few years, it still feels kind of newish, but yeah, I would say if anybody's been through like prolonged abuse, they should look it up and like, you know, research it. It's really interesting to learn about. I got diagnosed with it when I was, I think like pretty young. Officially diagnosed when I was probably like 13 maybe. And then I also got re-diagnosed later, like, yeah, like when I was like 16 or 17 maybe. And then I think, yeah, I've just been like, it's like hard to remember the timeline, but yeah, I was first diagnosed with CPTSD, I think when I was like 13. I think I was also, before CPTSD was like more of a thing, it was PTSD when I was even younger. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And here you are, chugging along like a powerhouse. You're awesome, Crystal. You're one of the coolest people I know.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I'm all about overcoming trauma and healing. I don't like to ever think of myself as a victim. I like to think of myself as a warrior, like a Viking warrior.
Shield maiden.
Yeah, I'm a shield maiden, man. I got through all the bullshit, and I'm stronger for it. Like life can throw whatever at me because I've definitely been through worse.
What would be your superpower?
My superpower? Shit.
Just being Crystal, if that's going to be the superpower.
I would probably have like super strength, maybe. If I had to say like unbiasedly, just looking at who I am, maybe like super strength, but I would really want to be able to like teleport or like do telekinesis. There's so many things I'd want to do, but maybe like I would be like a super strong, like badass Viking lady.
So out of those infinity stones, you'll take the power stone.
I guess so.
So now we can start wrapping things up. This was really awesome. I swear we can do this for hours. I get like so many questions I can just tap into, and I will probably bring you back. But so what's next for you? What's coming up? What can people expect?
Yeah, well, I'm editing this fantasy scene, so once I release that, that's going to be pretty dope. Also, just, posting stuff on TikTok and YouTube, always. I just finished up a film called Spider Baby. It's a horror film that should be released at some point on Tubi or somewhere else. So, that's something to look out for. It's a cool horror film. It might be going up to Oregon to film something soon, still TBD. But yeah, just keep an eye out for releases of projects I've already filmed. And right now things are kind of slow because it's summer and there's a writer's strike, but I'm trying to make my own content. Oh, I should say I am writing a D&D comedy sketch with some of my friends, and that's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited for that. That'll go on YouTube and TikTok.
All right, everybody's excited. Now, the question is, how do you find all this excitement on the interwebs? How can they find all of this work that you've done? Like, a lot of this stuff, actually. How do we organize this?
Well, you can follow me literally anywhere, pretty much. I post the most on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, sometimes Facebook. Pretty much, you can just look up Crystal Loverro, which is my name. I'm pretty simple. That's my handle. You can look at my website, crystalloverro.com. My link tree is Crystal Loverro. All of my social media is Crystal Loverro, and you can find me. And there's no other Crystal Loverro. I swear, I've looked.
Okay, and when they follow you, they can use the links in those profiles to basically find out everything that you've done, correct?
Yeah, you can also just Google me too, Crystal Loverro. You can just, I have a Google Knowledge panel. You can see, a bunch of articles I've been in. I'm fairly visible and easy to research, And all my links are on there pretty much. Or you could just say Crystal Loverro TikTok. There's my TikTok. Crystal Loverro YouTube. There's my YouTube. Pretty easy.
Sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a great opportunity to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yes, it was such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to our Energize, Explore, Enjoy podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. See you next week.